All right, welcome to another edition of Wesley's Own Words, where I am actually starting over. I'll just confess right at the beginning, I forgot to hit the record button. I recorded about 15 minutes of this already, but didn't actually hit the record button. So now I'm starting over, but that's okay. It's going to be even better the second time I do it, right? That's how it works. Well, we are continuing our Wesley's Own Word study. We've wrapped up the general rules of our United Society, so hopefully you enjoyed that. And today we're going to take a special one episode off and explore one of John's, probably the writing of Wesley that is the most published of his writings. Meaning this is the writing that is probably appears in a written form in the most places, and I'm going to guess by far. Now, the general rules we talked about last time was very widely published because it's in the Book of Discipline, and it's been every book of discipline, pretty much from the beginning of the Methodist movement. And so, that obviously is one that, it is published a lot, but maybe not in a place that people read it. But what we're talking about today actually is published probably far and away, if not 10, 20, 30 times, as many places, because we're talking about John Wesley's Rules for Singing, which appears at the front of every United Methodist hymnal through the last couple of generations of the United Methodist hymnal, in other Methodist and Wesleyan related hymnals, and was actually originally composed for a hymn book in 1761. So it dates from a time when Methodists are starting to develop their own Methodist worship resources. They've been around long enough. We've been around for a couple of decades by this point. We are meeting together for all kinds of reasons, including, worshipful reasons. And at that time, it was just much more common when people gathered to sing. Right now, we think of congregational singing, coming together to sing hymns, specifically as something we do on Sunday mornings at worship. And that certainly would have been something that happened in John's time, but it wasn't the only place it happened. In fact, any time that people got together to meet for faith practice, whether that be like a class meeting, a small group class meeting, or preaching, or whatever it might be. I mean, even just business meetings in the life of the church, it was not uncommon for people to gather together. I mean, it was very, very common for them to gather. Part of that gathering process for them to sing together, for a couple of reasons. One is if you wanted to hear music, this is how you heard it. Because there was no radio, there was no television, the phonograph wouldn't be invented for another 200 years, so there was no recorded music. So if you wanted to hear music, and human beings love music, then you either had to sing it, you had to make that music yourself, or be around somebody making music. Otherwise, you didn't hear it. And so it was very common to integrate in all these places. And then two is, this is a time, it's not a time like today where you can go on Craigslist and there's, 37 free pianos if you move them, listed there. Musical instruments were all the musical instruments we have today. Well, most of all the like analog, non-electric musical instruments that we have today were around, but they were handmade. I mean, this is at the time when Stradivarius is still making violins, right? I mean, and so organs are a thing, and pianos and harpsichords and all these things are a thing, but they're expensive, and so. A church may not have any instruments, and so it was common for people to. So if you sang, but you also sang a cappella, and the beautiful thing about singing a cappella is you can do it anywhere, right? You don't need anything, especially if what you are singing is something well known that everybody just kind of has memorized. I want to talk about that too in a minute here. So it was common. I mean, so it was something that you just did. It was part of the process of gathering together. Was singing together. And so they start to produce these worship resources, not just for Sunday mornings, but for all the times that Methodists gathered. And one of those was a collection of hymns, many of them by Charles Wesley. Charles Wesley, John's brother, would write 3,000 hymns during his life. And hymn writing was a very, very common thing. Yep, I'm just checking. Hey, I'm actually recording this time. Woohoo, go team me. Hymn writing was a very popular thing at the time. People, and it's how you got exposed to new music, and all that kind of stuff. So they would write. They started to develop these worship resources, these hymn books that people would have and share. That would just get people access to new and different things that they could sing along with. So John never misses an opportunity to write down some rules. He loves himself some rules. And so he he decides to add a preface to this hymn book, this new hymn book, Methodist hymn book that's coming out. And he lists some rules at the beginning of it to help people understand what this is about. And so first he says, learn these tunes before you learn any others. Afterwards, learn as many as you please. If you're going to sing together, and again, that is the activity we are talking about. We are not talking about singing along with a performance, which I think a lot of churches practice today, where you've got a group of people up front who are performing the song, and then maybe the words are listed on the screen, and you are really singing along with that performance. One of the ways that you know that's really what's going on is like if the music is so loud that you can't hear your neighbor singing, then you're not singing with them. You are both singing along with the people in the stage. And I'm not saying there's anything necessarily wrong with that. There's a time and a place for it. We do special music in our church, and, sometimes I'm tempted to sing along, with it. Or if we go to a concert or something like that, I mean, absolutely, you might sing along with your favorite band or whatever. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about congregational singing, where the group of people lifting their voices together is the thing that you are doing. So there may or may not be any accompaniment when you're doing it. And if there is, it's intentionally not that loud. It's not going to overwhelm the singing, because what you want is you want people to be able to hear each other, because if in order to sing along with you, I have to be able to hear you. And as long as it's a decent number of people and everyone's able and tuning in at least a little bit to what their neighbor is singing, that tends to sound pretty good, which is nice. So in order to do that, you got to have two things. One, you all got to be singing the same words, and two, you all have to be singing the same tunes. And if you don't have a piano banging out the tune, then you all have to know what the tune is. Basically, how does the music go? And so in this time, it was very commonplace. Tunes and hymns, basically words, were written separately. And oftentimes, words would be written in a way to match known tunes, and there would be less tunes than there would be words. So in the Wesley's hymn book that he's talking about, there's a certain number of tunes that all of the hymns, the lyrics are meant to go with. And so you would have one tune that might have multiple different songs, words that go along with it, and you needed to know both. And so oftentimes they would actually announce, if it wasn't, if it wasn't necessarily known, they would announce which tune you were going to sing. They'd announce the hymn, the words, and the tune, what tune you're singing it to. So you have to learn the tune and the hymn, right? And then if you know both those things, then you can sing together. And then 2 says, sing them exactly as they are printed here without altering them or mending them at all. And if you have learned to sing them otherwise, unlearn as soon as you can. John is really concerned that people be able to participate in what Methodists are doing, participate in Methodist gathering, participate in Methodist worship. And one way that you make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate is you keep things the same. So he's not really trying to be a buzzkill here. What he's saying is he doesn't want any barriers, right? He doesn't want, somebody from somewhere else coming in saying, oh, we're singing this song, I know that song, and then not be able to sing because that local group is singing it differently than everybody else does, right? And then because once you've done that, then you've created an in-group and an out-group, right? You've said, well, this is how we do it here, so you have to learn the way that we do it here. And John's like, no. No matter where you are, we are all Methodists, we're all in this together. We're all going to sing the same way, because no matter where Methodists gather, no matter where they come from, they need to be able to participate together. And he wants to make sure that the barrier for participation, this is really his thing across the board, the barrier for participation is as low as possible, right? He wants everybody to be able to do it. In order to have everybody do that, we need to have some consistency in how we are singing and what we are singing, which is why he's providing these resources in the first place. So he's like, don't go off and do it your own way, because then all you're doing is putting barriers up to other people joining you, right? That's not what we do. We want everybody to participate. And then he reinforces that in the 3rd rule, where he says, sing all. See that you join in the congregation as frequently as you can. Let not a slight degree of weakness or weariness hinder you. If it is a cross to you, take it up, and you will find a blessing. He says sing all, he means everybody. Everybody participates. If you are there and you are physically able to join in the singing, you should join in. It doesn't matter if don't think you're a very good singer. It doesn't matter if you just learned the song yesterday or you're just sight reading it out of the hymn book. It doesn't honestly even matter if you don't want to or don't like doing it, right? I mean, what else is a cross? If it is a cross to you, basically, if it's something you have to, if singing together is a burden to you that you have to bear, well then darn it, according to John, you should bear it, and you should sing along with everybody else, because what John understands is what we should understand, which is that the more people who are there who are participating in the singing, the better that it gets. And the more people who opt out, the worse that it gets, and the more that we are harming those who do want to participate. So he's not going to indulge a lot of excuses for why it is that people are not participating in the congregational singing. He's like, everybody should do it. It doesn't matter if you don't think you're good at it. It doesn't matter if you're tired that day. It doesn't matter if you just really, really hate doing it. Even if it is a cross to you, take it up and you will find a blessing. Because there is something special and there is something magical and wonderful about a group of people lifting their voices together. So we're gonna talk about that in a minute too. But so everyone is responsible to sing. Everyone should be singing the same tunes and the same words in the same way. Again, keep that barrier low, and then the level of encouragement high. So the barriers to singing and being part of that congregation in that way should be low, and the encouragement to do so, the encouragement to become a participant in and not just an observer, right? You're not just observing this worship or whatever it is, wherever meeting you're at or whatever. You're not just observing these things going on around you. You are highly encouraged, nay, required to become a participant in it by lifting your voices together. Number 4, sing lustily. Good word, lustily. Sing lustily and with good courage. Beware of singing as if you were half dead or half asleep, but lift your voice with strength. Be no more afraid of your voice now, nor more ashamed of its being heard than when you sung the songs of Satan. Okay, so that started fun and then kind of went weird. Sing lustily and with good courage. Sing, 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 sing. You are probably a better singer than you think you are. Most people are. And when people sing together and can hear each other, that's where you're going to get the best singing out of it. It's really kind of hard as long as it's a good, decent number of people, and there's at least a handful of people in there who are, pretty decent singers. It's really hard for that group to sound bad, so long as they can hear each other. And everybody's kind of following along with all of the rules that John is talking about. So he's like, doesn't want you to sing as if you're half dead. Don't sing as if you're half asleep. Don't forget, this is a worshipful activity, right? Congregational singing, coming together to sing the songs, is a worshipful activity. So he doesn't want us to sing as if we're half dead or half asleep, but do so. And he says, and then as when you sung the songs of Satan. Now, what he's getting at there is, because we live in a time when there is no recorded music, people would sing all over the place, and not just in church-related things. It was very common in any church-related thing, but you would sing at the pub. And similarly, and they would be secular songs that you would sing there. Sometimes it was the same tunes. Sometimes they would use the same tunes as the pub songs because, frankly, they were tunes that people already knew. So they would change the words. And that's how they would make them sacred music for worship, is they would change the words, but the tunes would stay the same. So it just kind of helps people over that learning curve of it. But, it'd be common if you were in the pub, that you would, sing together, especially if you were having a nice evening and everyone's having a good old time. And then also in the workplace, we have this vision in our head, a lot of us, this picture of, especially like enslaved people in the South, singing together. That's where a lot of our gospel music traditions, come from. They started as, songs that, slaves would sing, and, one would start and everybody would pick up and they would sing together as a way of kind of basically getting through the day, would lift your morale, give you a break from the drudgery of, whatever manual labor you were doing at the time. we have that vision in our head, but it wasn't constrained to that. I mean, basically anywhere there was any number of people working together, it would not be uncommon to find singing in the fields or, in the marketplaces or whatever, no matter who's there. It definitely was something that was a strong part of African American and enslaved people in the United States, but it wasn't by any means limited to that. And in fact, a lot of places. So you might sing in your workplace, you may sing in the market, you may sing in the pub on Saturday night, you may sing in your own home for entertainment because you got nothing else to do. Whistle while you work, kind of thing when you're, doing the dishes together, after dinner or, whatever. And so when he says, sing now, as when you sung the songs of Satan, he's being a bit, dire, as he was wont to be. But he's talking about basically the songs you would have sung in the pubs, in those kinds of places that were probably not the most edifying songs. I mean, like some of the folk songs at the time were a bit bawdy and raunchy and, things like that, as you might expect. But, gosh darn it, if people didn't sing them, loudly. So he wants people to bring that same kind of energy to singing songs to God, right? Like, let's bring that same kind of crying out, joyous energy that we might have, singing our favorite, popular music, on Friday night, into this worship experience on Sunday morning. And we shouldn't be any more ashamed of doing it there. Basically, we should sing as well on Sunday morning as we do, on, Saturday night after a couple of beers, is what he's saying there. But then he switches gears a little bit, and it kind of feels like it's almost like a counterpoint to what he just said in Rule 5, because he basically says, sing modestly. Do not bawl as so to be heard or distinct above the rest of the congregation, that you may not destroy the harmony, but strive to unite your voices together so as to make one melodious sound. So the way that I kind of recognize this is I think 4 is a group instruction. The sing lustily and with good courage, that is a group instruction to a group of people gathered. That's what we should be aiming for as a group, is, not kind of a group of people standing in a room slowly mouthing words, but we should together sing lustily and good courage. And then number 5, sing modestly is an individual instruction, right? Like you may be a wonderfully adept, well-trained, singer. You may have a strong voice, and some people do. Some people just have stronger voices than others. That's great, but don't forget that it's not your job and it's not the expectation that you are going to be heard over and above everybody else. The goal is always for this group of individuals to blend their voices together and create something beautiful and unique together to the point where you cannot tell where one person's voice starts and where another person stops. That's the harmony that he is looking for. He's not talking about harmony as like in 4-part harmony, though. When you're this used to singing a cappella is something that probably did happen. But he's talking about harmony in that, somebody who was just listening to what was going on would not hear any one person above all the others, but that, all those voices would be commingled and create something beautiful and distinct out of all those individual voices, that cannot be created on its own. And so he's basically saying to those who are weaker singers, you need to have a little bit more courage, push yourself to sing even more courageously. And those who have perhaps been given the gift of a big voice, need to modest it down and recognize that this isn't your concert performance. We are striving for some harmony where our voices are united together. So both sing lustily as a group. That's our goal. Individually, make sure that we are not ourselves striving to be heard over everybody else. All right. Then number 6, I love this one. This one might be my favorite rule. Sing in time. Whatever time is sung, be sure to keep with it. Do not run before and do not stay behind it, but attend closely to the leading voices and move therewith as exactly as you can, and take care not to sing too slow. Underline that. This drawing way naturally steals on all who are lazy. and it is high time to drive it out from among us and sing all our tunes just as quick as we did in the first. Yes. So there again, most of the time you're talking about a cappella singing, which means there's no drummer keeping beat. There's no pianist or organist or whatever, setting the time that everybody is matching to follow. There is this kind of negotiation that basically has to happen as people are singing about how fast they're going to sing. And there are some, John knows that there are some leading voices that will no doubt emerge, right? In any group of people, whether they are the official leading voices, like we have somebody who leads the congregational singing on Sunday morning, their job is not to be heard above everybody else, but their job is to kind of, again, be a leading voice that everybody can kind of key into. So that's why they're mic'd, but it's not particularly loud, or at least try not to be, particularly loud. But even without that, if you're just a group of people with no designated leader, there are some leading voices who will emerge who are going to set the pace. And basically, once the pace is sort of set, everyone's job is to keep up with it, and not drag it too slow. That tends to be what happens. Rarely will you have people pushing the beat forward or pushing the tempo faster, but you will have those, especially those who are being self-conscious about their singing, or just as John Wesley would say, as was said, they're lazy. Doesn't mince words, does he? Who are then going to drag it slower. And he's like, no. And again, this is supposed to be, congregational singing is supposed to be a joyous, wonderful, grace-filled experience where the Spirit is moving and all this sort of wonderful stuff. And so we should bring a level of enthusiasm and an excitement to it, not just kind of like, drawl our way through it, as easily as we can. So I love this language around, this idea that we are to keep going. And he knows that 9 times out of 10, if there's a problem with the tempo within, a group of people singing, it's that there is somebody dragging it slower. And he doesn't waste any time calling that laziness. That might be a bit harsh in my opinion. But, if we find ourselves being the slow one, it is our job to move up and bring ourselves forward to where everyone else is. That's the job. So we are to sing in time. Whatever time is sung, right? He knows that that's a bit of a negotiation that happens just as we begin singing. It's just one of those kind of things that kind of emerges. But whatever that one is, whatever kind of pace that is set, especially with those leading voices, we are to come along with it. And to make sure we don't want to be the ones dragging the energy and the momentum out of the song. Don't be that guy. Right? Don't be the ride dragging everybody down, dragging everybody slower, right? Like, don't be the black cloud in the congregation, right? Make sure that you are bringing your full self, your energy, your excitement to it as well. And then finally, the final rule, number 7, is the one you might think he started with, but he did not. Sing spiritually. Have an eye to God for every word you sing. Aim at pleasing him more than yourself or any creature, in order to attend strictly to the sense of what you sing, and see that your heart is not carried away by it with the sound, but offered to God continually. So shall your singing be such as the Lord will approve here, the reward when he cometh in the clouds of heaven. Sing spiritually. At the end of the day, congregational singing, as we practice it, is a spiritual activity. It is something, it is a gift that we offer up as part of our worship to each other and to God. And it is intended to be that place where, you can actually feel the movement of the Spirit in that place, in that time. It's not something we get through. It's not a chore that we have to do. It's not anything like that. That people choosing to come together, lift their voices up together, and engage in this community building activity together will create out of their individual performances, their individual expressions of their individual voices, something together that is far greater than the sum of its parts. And it may seem like I'm a little over exaggerating there, but I don't think that I am. It really is, singing together is a sacred thing. And it's sacred because of where our attention is and who it is that we are aiming to please, which is not ourselves, but we're aiming to please God. And that's why it doesn't actually matter if we don't think of ourselves as a particularly strong singer, or if we make a mistake somewhere along the way or whatever. As long as we are being attentive to the task at hand, doing our best, putting our best energy and effort and emotion, putting our mind to it, letting the music flow through us and around us and out of us, then and we are all doing it as this way to tune in to God and the rhythm of God, then we are doing it correctly. And that can be an incredible, blessed experience to be part of. And it's not always going to be that way, and it's not always going to work out the way that we want it to. But that's where we are striving to get to. And that's why when I taught this as a small group study yesterday, one of the things that was pointed out was it really feels like these are more than just the rules for singing. These are more just the rules for life. And yeah, like, yes, I absolutely, right? Because how we come together to sing, right? How we interact with each other as a community in how we sing, how we do that, where our focus is, where our energy is, and the attitude and the mindset that we bring to that community activity is that mindset we should bring to all community activities, right? We should always strive, no matter what we are doing, to lower the boundaries for people to participate in what's going on. We should always encourage people, to participate as fully as they are physically able to bring all of their gifts to bear, to not worry so much about the quality of what they're doing, but the intention behind it, right? Do they intend to participate? Do they intend to, to offer up their time and their energy and their effort, their gifts and their graces to God, right? So long as they are doing that, then they are doing the right thing, right? And we shouldn't be looking constantly to be the center of attention. We shouldn't look to be the loudest voice in the room, all the time. But we should see where do we fit? Where do our gifts and graces? Where do our excitement? Where do our energy? Where do the things that we care about? Where does that fit with the people around us? How does my interests and my skills, blend with your skills? And how, when we bring those things together, do we create something far greater than any one of us could have done on our own, right? That is church, right? That is what we are striving to do here writ large in all the things that we are doing. So yeah, John is definitely using the rules for something that probably feels as mundane as singing as a way of reinforcing who Methodists are in general, right? Who are we striving to be? Not a group of individuals, not a group of prima donnas, not a group of people who are just kind of going through the motions, sitting there with our arms dragging around us, just checking a box saying, yep, we sung that hymn, right? No, we are people who bring enthusiasm and excitement and energy to the work that we are doing. That's Methodist work can, constantly being berated for being far too enthusiastic. We were far too enthusiastic for people. Well, John's right here is like, be enthusiastic. Be enthusiastic about your singing. Be enthusiastic about what you're doing. Be enthusiastic about it. Be enthusiastic about church. Be enthusiastic about being, be enthusiastic about life. Be enthusiastic about being one of God's beloved children. Be enthusiastic about your discipleship and how you're growing. Be enthusiastic about it all. And when you come together in those sacred and special moments to lift your voices together to those songs that you know well, be enthusiastic about that too. So I hope you understand why, and sometimes there's a criticism of hymns that they're just simple and they're boring and they're repetitive and blah, blah, blah. As you can hopefully see now, that's for a reason, right? Of course, they're a little simpler because that makes it easier for everybody to participate, right? That's part of the whole process, because these are not designed to be performances, right? They're not designed for that. They're designed for 10, 20, 100, 1,000, 10,000 people to come together and participate in an activity together where they are all equally contributing to the creation of something together. So, of course, you don't want to overly complicate that. That's not the point. The beauty will come, in many ways out of the simplicity, right? Because we all have the opportunity to learn the tunes and learn the rules and all that kind of stuff. And a couple times through, we can kind of get it figured out. Anytime we introduce a verse, a new hymn here, I always want us to sing at least 3 or 4 verses, because by the time we get to the 3rd verse, we've pretty much figured it out, right? The first verse is going to be a little weak. The 2nd verse is going to be a little bit better because we're going to have remembered, what we just sang. And then by the 3rd verse, it's kind of locked in, and so, the first time we introduce any kind of new hymn, by the 3rd verse, we'll have it down. And then that's when that magic happens and we create something together, far more than we did individually. So yes, we should do it with how we sing together, but we should do it about far more than that. All right. Well, I hope you're enjoying this. I'm enjoying this too. We are going to start in on another one of Wesley's longer writings, Advice to People Called Methodist, starting in our next episode. But this was a little one-off, just something we wanted to do. I wanted to do because it's something that we run into all the time. So thank you for joining me for Wesley's Own Words, our special study into Wesley's original writings. Visit us at johnstown.church or UMC Johnstown on Facebook, all those kind of places. Check out our app, Become More, for all kinds of additional resources. And until we see each other again, have a blessed day.